Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Welcome to Love and Abuse. All the information on this show is meant for educational purposes only. Always seek a professional for your mental health and well-being, and always pick your battles wisely. And there was a battle that somebody went through that I'm going to share with you. This person wrote and said, "Dear Paul, like many other people, I found your podcast and workbook immensely useful to me to help me understand what happened during my relationship, which recently ended. However, one thing that I continue to struggle with is that in my case, the emotional abuser left me in a harsh way, just as we were planning some life commitments together. I haven't found much in the way of information on this scenario where the abuser decides to leave. I knew during the relationship that his behaviors were wrong, but I understood that he was willing to work on them. The relationship ultimately imploded after we saw a relationship counselor. I wanted to discuss how we felt about the first appointment, and he told me, albeit somewhat reluctantly, that I was free to book another appointment for us, but we cannot discuss the matter outside of appointments. I asked a further relationship question, and this triggered a rage attack and the subsequent end of the relationship. I don't know if many people have been in the situation where the abuser ends the relationship, but to me it seems unusual, and this has left my ego rather dented, and a general feeling of being used and discarded after all the challenges that the abuser put me through. If this is something that you think others might also have issues with, I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on the podcast. Thank you for your work." All right, well, thank you so much for sharing that. Sorry you had to experience this. This type of behavior is right in alignment with somebody who doesn't really want to face the issues. And it could be that he doesn't want to face them, or it could be that he knows the truth and he doesn't want it to come out. There's a truth that might be in there that when people vehemently defend themselves or act really in that rage-like manner, that there's something that they just don't want to talk about. And they don't want to talk about it so badly that they're willing to go the whole distance. A good example of this is when I was in a software store once. I forget which store it was, in a mall, and there was a guy at the register, and it was clear to me what he was doing, and it was clear to the cashier what he was doing. He found a piece of software, and it was so ridiculously low in price that it only made sense that either he switched the stickers or it was, it could have been priced wrong. But either way, a $300 piece of software for whatever it was, $10, was wrong. They couldn't sell it to him. They would be losing so much money. But he brought this piece of software up with this sticker on it, and they said, "I'm sorry, that's mislabeled, and we can't sell it to you for that price." And he said, "Well, it's the price on the box, so you have to sell it to me this way." And they said, I'm really sorry, but we can't." Normally, if somebody was really defending their position, they might say, "Well, this is wrong. Let me talk to your manager." And they would be adamant. They would be assertive. If this was a legitimate claim and somebody really wanted to push forth their point and make it known that, this is whatever, false advertising or whatever he thought it was. But what this turned into was something that almost you described in your email. It was yelling and rage and screaming at the top of his lungs so the entire mall, at least within a certain distance, could hear him. And he was just saying, "You have to sell it to me for this price." And he was yelling. I mean, the store just went silent, and we were all looking at this guy as if he were insane. It was just ridiculous how crazy he went over something that was either mispriced or he changed the label himself. But either way, no matter what the reason, there was no justification for his behavior to be so irrational, so crazy, so filled with anger and rage. There was something else going on. And even then, I knew this stuff. Before I started really getting into all the emotional abuse stuff and learning about it and studying it and understanding it fully, I could see what was happening here. Because some people will use extreme defensive and offensive measures to cover something up. It could be a lie. It could be a big fear. It could be something else, but there's something that they don't want to address at the heart of the matter. And they know that other people do not want to deal with somebody who is that crazy or that angry or that irrational. Most people don't want to deal with somebody like that. So many people will give in, they will submit because the other person's being so crazy. And I'm using crazy loosely. I don't really think it's crazy. I don't think they're actually crazy. I think they're intentional. I think when people do this, it is very intentional. And it is often a way to divert your attention, to take the focus off of the subject matter and put it on a situation you want to end. Because you don't want to sit there being yelled at. You don't want to be in fear. This can happen too. Somebody can put you in a state of fear because what's going to happen next? Are they going to hit me? Are they going to smash something? Are they going to light the place on fire? We don't know. What we do know is that if we give them what they want, they will calm down. This is a game. Most of the time, this is a game. This is why some emotional abuse has this type of behavior, because the person doing the behavior knows it works and knows you will eventually submit because you just don't want to deal with it. And it isn't just about anger. I mean, other people can do it in other ways. There are emotional abusers that will talk and talk and talk at you and keep talking at you until you are so, damn tired and exhausted from their points that you finally just throw your hands in the air and say, fine, whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. Because you're sick of hearing it. You're done with it. You're done with their monologue. And you just want them to stop. So you stop it in the way they want you to stop it. They know the game. I want you to know the game. I want you to know this is, most of the time, a game. I don't even like calling it a game. It's a manipulation. It's something that people do when they can't get their way and they want their way. So this is what they do. I give you this story as a reference so you understand that some people act this way on purpose, either to hide something and they know they're hiding it, or to not address something that's so deep and so dark or so scary to them that they just don't want to be that vulnerable. They don't want to feel that vulnerability, so they will blow a gasket. They will be angry. They will be upset. They will stonewall you, walk out the door, and you'll have no clue what just happened. And on top of that, you'll probably blame yourself. You'll probably ask yourself, oh my God, what did I do? I'm a rotten person. I should have done something different. I should have said this. I should have done this. And you'll blame yourself. And like this person says, your ego will take a hit. Your heart will take a hit. And they will still have accomplished what they wanted by keeping you in a place of no power or very little power. So when they walk out the door, they stonewall you, they still feel in control. This is where I'm going with this person today, is that she's asking me if I have any thoughts about what this person did to her. And yes, I have several thoughts. I've already shared with you what I think might have happened, like he might be hiding something, or he doesn't want to address something, he's afraid of something, or he's trying to cover a lie, whatever it is. And I don't mean to throw him under the bus. I have no idea. This is me guessing, but guessing with a background of knowing the type of behaviors that I see from emotionally abusive people. So It could be that he was hiding something or lying about something, or just afraid to be that vulnerable. There are some people that are afraid to be vulnerable with you, and they're so afraid that they would rather be without you than have to reveal it. So that can be the case. And if that was the case, I guess you could have some compassion for that person. It is hard to do when you're experiencing what you went through and what they put you through. At the same time, they can only address what they can address when they're ready to address it. One is more likely to be healed if they're seeking it. Otherwise, there's really nothing you can do until they're ready to address what's going on inside of them. In this case, if this person has lied about something and doesn't want the lie to come up, then he's going to do everything he possibly can to cover that. And a good way to cover it is all the anger, because he probably realizes that maybe you don't handle anger or rage very well. I mean, not a lot of us do, but if when he gets angry, you cower, you back off, you don't grill him for any more information, then he may use that over and over again just to avoid talking about things. And it's clear he doesn't want to talk about things because of what you said. Let's not talk about this outside of our appointments. That makes, I want to swear here, that makes no effing sense whatsoever. If you're going to see a counselor, you want to be able to talk about what you talked about so that you can reach a new place inside of you, a new level of communication, a new level of connection, and both be vulnerable enough to want to work on the relationship together. So it doesn't make sense for me for someone who actually wants this relationship to come out of counseling and say, okay, everything we talked about is behind those doors. Let's not discuss this until next time. And then he says, I really don't want to go next time. So basically, everything that we talked about, we're never going to talk about again. Again, makes no sense to me. If he really wants to improve the relationship, build a stronger connection with you, have more communication, get closer to you, build more trust and connection, that he would avoid all of this and not go again. So there's something that he's not sharing. There's something that he's hiding. This is my guess. And he doesn't want it to come out. So he doesn't want to talk about it. So this isn't on you. This is on him. Because if somebody doesn't want to talk about something, or they want to hide it, or they're lying about something, that has nothing to do with you. That is all their fears, their insecurities, their vulnerabilities. And there's nothing you can do about that until they're ready to bring it up and talk about it. Because if you can't have a simple conversation, even a vulnerable conversation with each other, expressing your fears, expressing your insecurities, then it is super difficult to grow closer. I mean, it really is. It's very difficult to grow closer when one of you is vulnerable, one of you is willing to talk about things, one of you is ready to take the emotional armor off your heart and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And the other one wants to keep that emotional armor on tight, surrounding themselves with so much protection that they refuse to go there, which does not make a relationship. It is very difficult to relate to someone when one of you is open and one of you is closed. I don't even know if you can. It's very difficult. I mean, you can relate in certain ways. You like the same movies, you like doing different activities together, but when it comes to an emotional connection, it is very difficult for one person to be open, or at least willing to be open, and the other one not willing to be open. It looks like in this case, maybe he decided to go to couples counseling just to see what it was like, or maybe he thought it wasn't going to be as revealing, but maybe it was a good counselor and he or she dug in a little bit and he realized, oh, this is getting way too close to some fears I have inside of me or some truths I have inside of me, and I don't want them to come out. And who knows what they are? There could be a number of things going on inside of him. It could be something that he experienced in childhood, or it could be some heinous act he did, or it could be something so minor that to other people it would be an honor if he was able to share that and be vulnerable, but he thinks it's the scariest thing in the world, so he doesn't talk about it. But it's still not on you. Whatever he's hiding or holding back on, it's still not on you. So he ended the relationship not because of you, but because of him. Because there was something that he just didn't want to share, didn't want to come out, a truth that he was willing to sacrifice everything for because he just doesn't want to deal with it. Now, does this mean it's over forever? I don't know. If you've been dealing with abusive behavior from him and it's now over, I'm not going to say, hey, get back together and let's talk about this, because I want you to keep your power. And if that abusive behavior comes back and you are then put in another powerless position, then I'm not going to say, get back together with him and ask him these questions. But I will say, if you end up talking to him again, you could ask the question, what is so deep and dark inside you that you are unwilling to visit it? So that could be a question you ask him. Maybe it'll turn into more rage and more anger, and I don't want to put you in that position. Maybe he will take whatever he's hiding to the grave. And again, I'm only guessing that he might be hiding something. But when you experience an emotional reaction so overly exaggerated, it is often a way to hide what's going on inside or prevent that from coming out so that you don't feel vulnerable. He doesn't want to feel vulnerable. He doesn't want to get into that space. There's something about being vulnerable that scares him. Or there is a lie. He's hiding the lie. And the best way to hide the lie is to not talk about it and push so hard in the other direction that you never explore that part of his life and he never has to talk about it. So that could be what's happening as well. But who knows? I only have your experience of what happened, so it could be a number of things, but that's where I go with this. And I don't know how the rest of your relationship went. I mean, you did say you bought the workbook, so I imagine you have been experiencing emotionally abusive behavior, and throughout your message you did call him the abuser, or when abusers do this, so you were using that word. So I imagine the relationship was difficult in the first place. And yes, the abuser can and does leave relationships. It doesn't often happen because there are abusers that do the behaviors they do to try to keep the relationship, which is unusual because the behavior they're doing only drives a wedge between the two people in the relationship. But yes, you're right. You're implying here that the abuser doesn't often leave the relationship. That's the one thing they want to keep, and they want to keep it so badly that they do everything to change and control you so that what they're keeping is exactly the way they want it. And they usually want it that way because it gives them a feeling of control, which is a powerful feeling. If you have control, if everyone is showing up exactly as you want them to show up because you're manipulating circumstances and people to make them show up that way, then you are in control. The problem is that people's emotions are involved and people don't like to be controlled. So the emotional abuser tries to control the person in the relationship, thinking that it makes the relationship better because the other person is showing up in a way that makes the controller feel better, but it makes the other person pull their hair out. It makes them want to get away from the behavior. So the controlling person does behavior that they think works for them, but in reality is actually pushing the other person away and eventually will destroy the relationship if it hasn't already. Some people will stay in a destroyed relationship for a long time, even though there's really nothing left except control. This is where love and abuse comes in. It's the trauma bonding that happens when you're in a relationship for so long that's already destroyed. It's already in a bad place, yet if you stay in that relationship, it's because you've confused the control and the manipulation, the emotional abuse with love. Because you might think that if they want to keep me in their life, they must love me. But you can forget they want to keep you in their life so they can control you. Again, not everyone does this, but this is what happens in a relationship that's already destroyed and the other person has the controls, always doing things to make the other person feel bad and feel guilty. They're always trying to keep them down so that the controlling, abusive person feels up. It's the power over model, where if they have power over you, the relationship is working for them. And clearly, that does not work for you. So yes, the abuser can leave the relationship. And when it happens, or at least in this case, it happened because he wanted to stay in control. This is another guess. I'm just assuming that's what happened because I don't know the whole story, but I'm assuming that he did not want to address what was going on inside of him, or he wanted to hide something, and he wanted to make sure that that never came out, and the only way to do it was to leave the relationship. So that's how big this stuff is, because in a nutshell, emotional abuse is the result of poor or unhealthy or toxic coping mechanisms from childhood. Typically, you learn how to survive, and at the time they probably worked for the person, but when they grow up and they're in adult relationships, they're still accessing those old coping and survival mechanisms, but it turns into emotionally abusive behavior because it's all about their survival and not kindness and respect and compassion and support and all the good stuff that you want to see from someone in your life. So many rely on control and trying to change and trying to make you feel bad, and that puts them in a position of power and makes them feel like they're in control. And if they don't feel like they're in control, or they feel like they're losing control, some of them just can't handle it. They just don't want any part of it anymore, and they want to get away from anything that makes them feel vulnerable. So that could have happened in this case. I don't know, but I do know it's not on you. Some people just aren't ready to handle their stuff or deal with their stuff, and they may never want to deal with it. They may never want to talk about it. And if that's the case, then there's really nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do if someone chooses to cover what they feel most vulnerable about, or hide what they're trying to hide. If they're on a mission to hide whatever it is inside of them, whether it's some old trauma, old baggage, or a lie, and they don't want to feel like they're out of control and they never want to feel vulnerable, they're going to have these overly exaggerated emotional implosions or explosions, and you're going to be left wondering what the heck just happened. So thank you so much for writing. I wish you much strength and healing through this. This is not on you. I know you'll probably have to process some stuff, but these are my thoughts. I hope they've been helpful. I hope they've been insightful. Thanks for tuning in, and share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. The workbook provides an evaluation of your relationship based on a 200-point assessment. It is geared toward romantic relationships, but many have used it to determine if family or others in their life are being manipulative or emotionally abusive as well. If you're in a difficult relationship and would like to pinpoint the unhealthy behaviors causing you to leave so many interactions feeling bad, let the workbook help you discover specific components of bad behavior and put into words what you're experiencing. Get the tools you need to help you reach clarity. Visit loveandabuse.com for more information. And for anyone that has tuned in that feels like they are the emotional abuser and they want to seek help or seek change, head over to healedbeing.com, where I created a program to help you do just that. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you're not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant, because you are. Thanks for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.